G'day guys, and today, a very interesting piece of philosophy that I've been meaning to share with you for quite some time. So today we'll be delving into the branch of philosophy known as metaphysics, which is the study of reality. Essentially, what is reality? What is it? What are we looking at? And all this stuff. Is reality even real? Is there such thing as an external world? And stuff like that. So up until somewhat recently, I haven't taken much of an interest in metaphysics. I've mainly been focusing on the philosophy of ethics, what is right. Because I'm very interested in the idea that there could be such thing as objective ethics external to some kind of theology. There is a bit of a problem with this, however, because ethics is all fine and good, but what does it matter if you can't even prove that the world exists, that we're not just brains and tanks and things like that? So I began to read about metaphysics a bit more, and I stumbled upon something that was really simple, but it really struck a chord with me, and that's what I want to share with you today. And that is Immanuel Kant's theory of knowledge, or his idea of what knowledge actually is. So as far as I understand it, Kant split knowledge into two groups, intuition and concept. Now a concept is an indirect acquaintance pertaining to the idea of something, quote, in general. When you think of something bereft of any empirical sense data, without seeing it, without smelling it, without hearing it, what you're actually doing is conjuring up your concept of what that is. For example, you can think of what a house is without actually looking at one. In the other category, an intuition is direct sense data relating to a particular object. So when you look at something, you gain an intuition based on what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it smells like, etc., etc. So those are the two divisions of knowledge according to Kant, intuition and concept. Now on its own, these ideas aren't exactly very strenuous to the mind. What is very interesting to me, what really caught my attention, is the interplays between intuition and concept and what happens when you have one but not the other. So to bastardize a quote, intuitions without concepts are blind. When you encounter something for the first time, you are blind to what it is. You are able to perceive it through the senses, you are able to gather an intuition, but you have no concept to which to join it to. An example of this is an uncontacted tribesperson sensing a laptop for the first time. He can observe it, but he doesn't know what it is. This tribesperson has no concept to link his intuition to. Now when you and I encounter a familiar object, our intuition of it can be joined to our concept of it. This enables us to understand what the familiar object is. Another example. The Starbucks hipster encounters a laptop. He both observes and understands the substance before him, as he has both an intuition and a concept of what a laptop actually is. If we observe both the tribesperson and the hipster, we can see a clear dichotomy between them. The clear difference is that one has a concept of what a laptop is and the other does not. This dichotomy of concept can result in differential treatment. The trendy hipster sits down to complain about the minimum wage on Twitter, whereas the native spears the laptop and attempts to eat it, mistaking it for a fish. So this begs the obvious question, where do concepts come from? How do they develop and that sort of thing? Well, I believe concepts are developed through exposure to unknown objects as we gather intuitions about them. When you encounter something for the first time which you don't know, you place it into its own category, whereas someone can explain to you what it actually is and you can gather information about similar objects. For example, for the first time today at work, I encountered a grease gun. Now I'd never seen a grease gun before in my life, but now I have some kind of concept about what a grease gun is based on my intuition of looking at the tool that I had to use at work today. Now as my concept is based on a very limited number of intuitions, it is not very refined, and as such I may mistakenly apply it in the future. For example, I may mistake the next grease gun I see for a high pressure hose. I may encounter a grease gun with a different looking nozzle, and as such miscategorize it as something else. The point is, as my intuitions increase, my concept becomes more refined. Eventually, I will be able to link my intuitions of grease gun to my concept of grease gun with near perfect accuracy. So now we have the two main divisions of what Kant considers to be knowledge. This allows us to go back and look at our lives and what we know, what we have concepts of, and ask ourselves, where did these concepts come from? How do I know that a laptop is a laptop? How do I know that a grease gun is a grease gun? And such and so forth. This is all well and good, but Kant goes on to answer a very, very interesting question, which is where do our understandings, our concepts of the very underlying principles of reality, principles such as substance, space, and time, where do those come from? And this is where he departs from me. Kant goes down the route of idealism, which is a philosophical position that asserts that some state or activity of the mind is prior to and more fundamental than things we experience. Kant goes on to assert that our knowledge of certain things, such as substance, space, and time, exists a priori, which is to say that it does not come from empirical evidence. As Kant was a religious man, he likely believed that this knowledge was given to him by God. This metaphysical theory, which Kant termed Transcendental Idealism, asserts that both reason and experience are necessary to understand the world. In this, Kant sidesteps the age-old rationalism versus empiricism debate by asserting that both sides are right at the same time, that both reason and experience are necessary for us to truly understand reality. Thanks all for sticking around. I hope you were able to garner some wisdom from this video. Maybe you found the interactions of intuition and concept as intriguing and then fascinating as I did, or maybe you just thought I was droning on about anything. Regardless, I do encourage everyone to continue their quest of knowledge, engage in all branches of philosophy, not just one: epistemology, metaphysics, and ethics. Have at least a rudimentary grasp of each branch in order for you to be able to dab on all your normie mates. I look forward to your feedback below, and don't forget to have a good one.